Why are they doing this?
They've adapted.
Well, I don't think we can allow that to happen.
Play more!
What's going on, y'all? This is Joe Engar here with a kind of a bit of a different vibe of a show for today. Usually Go Tell Ma is all about bypassing the traditional education system to be able to teach yourself how to do something new. So I usually like to interview people who have taken a different route to being able to learn a new hobby or trade or skill or something that benefited their life in some way, like whether it be getting a new hobby, being able to start a new career path, like get a new job, or maybe start their own business or something like that. So that's what I usually do. Over the past week or so, damn 2020 is all I gotta say. But over the past few days, it's May 30th I don't know, like Sunday night, about 6:30 or so. But a few days ago, a man named George was murdered by a group of police officers. And I don't need to go into too much detail. I'm sure just about everybody who has watched some sort of TV or been online in the past few days is well aware of what happened. I should go into some detail. So there were about 4 officers that contributed to beating the crap out of this guy. There's footage of him being taken into a police cruiser, and from the vantage point that I've seen, it looks like he's just getting the crap beat out of him. And then looks like there was also 3 of those police officers restraining him on the ground, with one of them kneeling on his artery on his neck that cut off the blood supply to George's brain. And they straight up murdered a guy in broad daylight. And I don't think that this man would have been murdered by the police if he were white. I think that if he were white, that would not have happened. And also, it sounds like there was some sort of a personal, I don't know whether there was a past disagreement or a skirmish or something between the officer who had his knee physically on George's neck. But there was some sort of history there. They've known each other, and I don't know how well they knew each other or anything like it. You know, a lot of news is still up in the air with it, and I'm not directly investigating the actual murder itself with the most relevant and accurate access to the information about it. I'm just kind of doing my best here. But anyway, police officers in the United States of America murdered a man, and he would not have been murdered had he been white. And this kind of stuff, like there are times when police officers kill white people, but it's way more predominant and more likely to happen to people if they are black. And it's 2020. I'm filming this on a camera that is connected through Wi-Fi to my cell phone so that I can like monitor the screen. Like, check this out. Like, dude, I mean, we're here in the fucking future, man. Like, this is not, I mean, it's never right to kill another person. It's never right to kill another person because of the color of their skin. But like, I mean, we're here, like, we have access to just about every type of information that we could all want. And this type of bigoted hatred is still a thing in our country, like land of the free and home of the brave. And I'm not seeing much of either freedom or bravery going on in our country, at least from the, the upper echelon of the people who are in control. I mean, they're exercising their freedom to do whatever the hell they want to the citizens, it seems like. And they're just being cowards about the way that they go about regulating things. And it feels like it's all about making sure that the politicians can get reelected back into office for another term, and that they can make sure to make money for themselves and their friends, whether that's, legal or not. And it feels like they're able to bypass any laws they want, and it's not right. And I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. And usually I don't focus on this kind of stuff, but I think it's super important to be discussing this. One sec here. Make sure everything's good. But yeah, anyway, I mean, I'm this like white blonde guy from Utah, so I've never experienced racism directly myself. So I feel terrible because I don't feel like I have much to add to the conversation other than coming out and saying that I feel this type of treatment of any person, not just black people, but treating another person because of the way that their color is, or the way that their family history is, or their, things that they can't help about themselves, treating people differently because of that is wrong. And it's still going on in our country. And I mean, all around the world, it's still going on. And I just think that's completely unacceptable it's never acceptable, but especially now with access to information, and I mean, people are people, and I don't understand why there is still this treatment of others going on. It pisses me off, and I'm pretty mad about it, and it's not right. And so I just today wanted to get on here and say that, and I think it's super wrong. I don't know the solution to the problem other than that people need to stop being assholes and stop caring about these differences of color. Like, we're all humans, and it's okay to see somebody else and see, hey, that person looks differently than me, or they're from another country than me, but that doesn't mean that they're any less of value than I am. It's sick and wrong that people think that way, and that goes on, and it's honestly pretty confusing to me as to why that's a thing. And I mean, the truth of the matter is that the United States, without slavery, which was a terrible, terrible thing to happen, and it wasn't just going on in the US, but without slavery, the United States would not have been built. And these assholes literally went and stole people from other countries, brought them here, and forced them to do work and to basically build the structural foundations of our country. And our country wouldn't exist if it weren't for that terrible thing that, has happened throughout our history. And I mean, our country is literally founded on that. And I think that's sick and wrong. And, no country's perfect. I think it's a terrible thing that happened. And it's terrible that hundreds of years later, there's still this type of treatment of other people going on. I just don't feel like I'm very adequate in being able to help with the situation. And I wish there was something more that I could do other than just stating my opinion that it's wrong and it's sick and it needs to stop now, and change needs to occur from the bottom up and the top down. It's not okay to treat somebody differently because they look different or because they're different than you. Everybody needs to be treated the exact same. We're all special, and I believe that people are all connected on a, whether you want to call it spiritual or energetic level. I believe that we're all connected in some manner to one another, and that when a person does something bad to one person, it affects everybody. And even if that wasn't the case, it would still be wrong to be evil and hurt another person. So I just want to say that. And I'm here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And Salt Lake, so I've lived here pretty much off and on for my whole life. And Salt Lake is typically, like it used to be, super white. Just like, I mean, everybody looks like me, like white, blonde hair, blue eyes. There were Native Americans here, indigenous people, before the Mormon pioneers showed up and kind of shoved them along. And, you know, don't see too many indigenous people integrating in the rest of society here. Growing up, it was always just seeing a ton of white people everywhere you look. And slowly over time, and it's been awesome, and I'm very glad to see it, we've had people move here from out of state that look different and are different than the typical Mormon LDS people that are still in charge here. And the LDS church basically runs the political structure here in the state. Outside of Salt Lake City, it's predominantly more right-wing or Republican. Salt Lake City itself is a bit more Democratic, a bit more on the left as far as the political beliefs. And yeah, it's been really awesome to see people from out of state move here and start to change things up and yeah, make things a bit different. And I think they're better. And I think that I think a lot of that really started to happen around 2000, 2002 when the Olympics came here. And a lot of people from all over the country and all around the world came here to watch the Olympics. And people realized how beautiful Utah is and how awesome Salt Lake City is. And, you know, Ogden's cool and Utah County's pretty cool down there. But it's been really nice to see some different kinds of people move here and, you know, help bring some good change. And there are a lot of people here who are resistant to that, and that's fine. That's their business. They tend to be off in the outskirts. And, you know, I mean, to each their own. A lot of people just don't like change. They like things just being the way that they've always been. I don't understand that myself because I enjoy change. And I think that changing things up consistently is good for you. And that's also goes along kind of with my overall theme of the whole Go Tell Ma thing is, you know, learning new things causes change for ourselves and can better our lives. So, yeah, I don't know. Kind of a strange little rant there, but yesterday in the afternoon we had a pretty interesting protest that turned into a bit of a more active protest. Some people are calling it a riot. I still consider a protest to be labeled as a protest, even if it includes property damage. I think, you know, it's sad that smaller businesses were affected by it. And I don't like violence myself. So it was sad to see some people getting injured. And, you know, I heard a few people got hurt. And I don't think, you know, nobody was killed, luckily, which is great. But the property damage that happened honestly doesn't really bother me so much because I think that it's a way of showing people, I guess, those in charge that people are serious about this cause. And it was the protest was initially started. Well, the whole thing was for calling for justice for George. And I guess the one of the 4 officers involved, and this could change, I'm not sure. But one of the 4 officers was charged with 3rd-degree murder, which is manslaughter. And I'm pretty sure that's involuntary manslaughter. I'm not 100% on that. I could be wrong. But to me, there was nothing involuntary about kneeling on somebody's artery to choke their blood flow to their brain to make them pass out. I mean, how is that an accident? That's ridiculous, and it's wrong. And a lot of other people agree all around the country and around the world. People are protesting like wild. And there are people who are kind of joining in with these protests who have different intentions. And some of these people are trying to make it more violent than it is naturally by, I've seen footage of some random guy with a sign who was standing by the front line of the police, and I can't remember which city this was in, but he like sprayed one of the other protesters with mace and made it look like it was coming from the angle of the police. And then it looked like the police started macing after this guy who was a member supposedly of the protesters. And the guy had a sign and everything. And it looked like his like bear mace or whatever was hidden kind of behind his sign, and that he shot another protester with the mace, and to make commotion and confusion, and to make like the other cops start like spraying other protesters. And I've seen a short video on, I think it was on Instagram, of some guys, I think it was in Dallas, and there was like a pallet of bricks that was just conveniently placed out on the sidewalk in the middle of the night. And these guys were walking by and saw it and were like, well, hey, that's obviously like a trap for people. Like, it was set up to look like it was like a pallet of bricks that was put there for construction purposes or something like that. But it was like, no, these people are like literally setting people up to try to incite violence and destruction. And I've heard a rumor floating around that it might be from some like extremist right-wing groups trying to incite some sort of reason for there to be a civil war between the right and the left in our country. And man, I think that's not good. Like, that would be terrible. I think it's very obvious that both sides in our country, if you want to just divide it up into 2 sides, I think we're a lot more dynamic than that. I think a lot of people would float somewhere in between the 2 if you asked them. But it was just crazy. They're like trying to start a civil war between them. And I think that's so stupid, because dividing people up is how people get conquered. And I think as citizens, it's our responsibility to, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this correctly, but to basically stay united. I mean, it's in the name of our country, the United States of America. That's one of the basic foundations of what our country is founded on, is that the citizens are all of us, everybody that lives here, is trying to make the country a better place. And we all have different ideas of what that means, and we have different opinions, and that's fine. That's part of what freedom's all about. It's all about being in this society where it's okay to not all think the exact same. We're not like robots or like automatons or whatever. And man, it'd be a sad day if everybody were thinking the same exact thing. But I think it's very important that we as individuals and people don't let these divisive tactics form wedges in between all of us. And I think it's incredibly important that we try, despite our differences, to, be kind to one another and to respect each other and to not hurt each other or say mean things to one another. It's okay to disagree and all that stuff. I think disagreement is important, but there are ways of disagreeing that don't result in violence or anger or harm to others. Like, we're all in this weird sort of way, we're all kind of brothers and sisters here. And man, it's just been such a hard year already. It's been a hard, like, it seems to me like it's been a hard last like 20 years. That could just be me. But man, like, tensions are high, and I think now is the time to be maybe a little bit more empathetic towards others, and to try to be a bit more understanding, and maybe instead of just like flying off the handle when somebody says something you disagree with, maybe try to understand why they feel that way and try to have a discussion about it, or like just talk about it. Or you could just say, you know what, I'm just going to have to agree to disagree, and that's okay. Like, that's fine. As long as people aren't going out and hurting other people on purpose, like trying to hurt others or use others to benefit financially for their own selfish gain, it's fine to be different. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there. I had to switch something up on my camera. But anyway, long story short, we all need to cut out this divisive bullshit and boycott anybody who says otherwise, whether they're on the right or the left. If they're trying to sow seeds of divisive rhetoric and thought, there's no place for them here. We're done with that shit. It doesn't work. It's time to stop it. We need to unite and become one functioning unit of a country together, of citizens that are from all different walks of life and that all have different ideas and different thoughts, and being okay with the idea that everybody else out there does not agree with us, and everybody never will. And that's good. That's how change occurs and progress happens, is from bringing a bunch of different people together, putting all their heads together, understanding, that we all have different ideas, and learning from them together and moving forward. That's how any good change occurs. Just from, we were a melting pot, and we still are. We still have a lot of different people here, which is awesome and good. And it would be awful if everybody were the exact same. But we need to really start embracing those differences, whether they're different colors of skin, different religions, different, sexual preferences, different non-binary individuals. There's a whole range of different sexes out there. There's not just male and female. It's time to accept that and move forward. All this, I'm so sick of this divisive shit. Back to the Salt Lake City riot stuff is the main reason I wanted to get on here. But yeah, it's pretty wild. Lots of people were really pissed off. I don't know. I thought it was kind of lame that they instituted a curfew, because that gave them legal precedent to be able to kick everybody out. I don't think they should have done that. I also think it was fine that people were damaging property and overturning a cop car and setting it on fire. I think it was fine that they overturned that jackass who brought his bow and arrow. Like, was he like playing Legend of Zelda, like pretending to be Link or something? But like, dude, that jackass, he got what he deserved, and I hope that he has to pay for his own damage to his car, and I hope they make him pay to get the street resurfaced where his car burned up. I don't think that protests without property damage work. They've had, non-damaging protests for years for race, for all sorts of things. And I just never see those really bringing any change. Somebody brought up and I can't remember the name of it right now, but somebody brought up the riots. They're calling it a riot that occurred years and years and years ago. That was what initially spawned the Gay Pride Festival Pride weekend and all that stuff, and that's a worldwide thing. But that was like that was initially a 5-day long riot where, man, shit was getting fucked up, and it caught the attention of the political leadership, and they're like, okay, these people are serious. Let's make a change. And I'm not condoning violence against other people at all. That is wrong in all times. I am saying I think it's okay to damage some property. I think things shouldn't get to the point where people are being treated poorly or with violence or oppressed. I don't think people should be getting treated like that to the point where it has to take a protest or a riot or whatever the hell you want to call it to, get a large group of people out there to say, hey, we're pissed about this and we're not being heard by you guys. So this is how we're going to make you listen to us. I think a lot of our political structure needs to be overhauled. And, I don't see anything wrong with the property damage. I think, it sucks because it's going to be taxpayers that have to pay for that. But man, maybe instead of waiting till it comes to a boiling point with things, maybe all of us as individuals can start standing up for our friends more, making sure that if we're seeing any sort of people being treated like shit, or like racism or sexism or homophobia or any of those societal ills that are so common still, anytime we see any of that stuff, we as people need to stand up, grow a spine, and not put up with it. And, we're not all perfect. I'm not perfect. I haven't ever always been the exact perfect ally. But yeah, I'm learning, and I know everybody else can too. We can all try better and improve as a group of united people. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. And just super heavy. I went out this morning and took a bunch of footage of some of the damage that was caused from the protest in Salt Lake. And they have, the mandatory curfew in effect that goes through until tomorrow morning, which is Monday morning. The police were totally fine with me out taking footage of it. They were respectful and nice to me, and I was respectful and kind in return. It's unfortunate that a few bad cops are able to be out and about doing their thing, while all these good cops aren't speaking up. And I mean, all these other like quote good cops or whatever the hell you want to call them, they should be calling that shit out too. And it's up to them also to be standing up for those who are facing oppression. And it's not okay to just stand by quietly and watch things go on. And it's hard when your job's on the line, but that's still no excuse to let it happen. I heard, I can't remember which news source it was, but they were talking about police reform and saying that one reason why this whole thing still goes on with all these people of color being oppressed and killed and murdered, one reason that changes haven't been made to the police union and that structure is because the police union holds so much voting power in our country that politicians are too afraid to touch that because they're worried that they're going to lose their vote. I really hope that this next election changes that. I'm not stoked on either of the candidates at all. But I mean, we'll see what happens. We need a big change here, like desperately. And I'm pretty sick of it. Man. Yeah. I feel very fortunate to have the freedom that I have to be able to be sitting here and being able to talk about this. Like, fuck, man. Super lucky. Yeah, super crazy time. But this morning cruising around Salt Lake, I was treated just fine, and I wondered if I were black or a person of color, if I would have been treated as nicely as I was. And man, all I have to say is it's sick. Racism is wrong. It needs to stop. And yeah, I really don't know how I can help contribute other than standing up for people who aren't able to stand up. Making this was one thing that I thought could help. And yeah, I really don't know. It's super frustrating. Yeah, not the biggest fan of the politicians, but that might be the only way to make change happen is to get out and vote and get people in your own communities. And on the presidential level, change that immediately. That guy, Trump, sociopath, psychopath, complete asshole. I've never seen anything like that, and I can't even believe that's our reality. It's almost, I mean, it's not funny, but it's like so bizarre and out there that it's like, dude, it's the darkest, weird, abstract thing ever written. Yeah, I'm excited for that to change. But yeah, I don't know. At this point, I feel like I'm just kind of ranting. So that's what I got. Man, I hope the protests and the I hope things continue protest wise until some sort of change is brought out. I think people need to take this stuff a lot more seriously than they are. And yeah, it's a wild freaking time we got. So anyway, this is me, Joe, in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm a white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes, and I've never experienced racism myself, but I still see it as a massive problem. And dude, it's not right to ever be treating somebody who's different from us poorly or with violence or oppressing them just because they're different. Hurting people because they have things about themselves that are different than us is wrong. Dude, even treating somebody poorly from something that they could change about themselves is wrong. It's just wrong to treat other people poorly. Yeah, I mean, that's all I got, guys. Hope everybody has a better week, and I'm excited to see some change happen. And I'm really excited to see people start uniting despite our political beliefs, despite our racial differences, despite our sexual preferences. I think just we're all people here on this planet. We're kind of basically in this giant bowl of soup together. When one person makes a decision, it affects others. And I really am excited to see people behave that way and behave a little more consciously. And I know it'll happen. It might take a minute, but change is coming. And yeah, I really hope everybody has an okay day or night whenever you're listening to this. And man, yeah, change needs to happen. Racism needs to stop right now. This is bullshit. Man, yeah, signing off.